I'm Chandra De Silva. I'm the Vice Provost. I'm standing in for the Provost, who was really keen on coming today, but she has to be in Richmond because today is the day that they are celebrating the award of the Chev Outstanding Faculty. And so she had to be in Richmond. My task today is to introduce Debbie Bauman, and looking around at people who are here, most of you probably know her better than I do. Debbie, as you know, is Associate Professor of Dental Hygiene. She is Assistant Dean of the College of Health Sciences. She has gone through Old Dominion University, and so she knows Old Dominion University really well. I needn't give you too much information about her. You know that she's published one book and co-authored another, right? Many, many other publications. She has been instrumental with a group in starting a program in Nicaragua. And she is also on the board of Lake Taylor Transitional Care Hospital. Apart from all that, she's somebody who really cares about her students, and she's a wonderful teacher. So I will let her talk to you about the topic interacting with students. So please welcome Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chandra. I appreciate that. And Shelley Mishu was not able to be here, our Dean of Health Sciences. She's also on that trip. And our Chev Award winner, Carolyn Rutledge from nursing, Dr. Rutledge, our ODU representative to the Chev Outstanding Faculty. So it's so exciting to have health sciences represented. Thanks for coming today. I've been teaching at Old Dominion University since 1982, so I've been interacting with students for a long time. My discipline is dental hygiene. I was coordinator of the sophomore year of dental hygiene clinic for many, many years, and now as assistant dean only teach at the graduate level. So my graduate level course is a course on how to teach students. So I try to work with the students, especially on that interaction component, because it's especially important in dental hygiene, as I'm sure it is in nursing, health sciences, global health, nuclear medicine technology, Japanese, and engineering. So we have lots of interaction to talk about. I am really eager to hear your ideas on interacting with students, what's been successful for you, and maybe how you changed something that might have not been as successful as you liked early on. I've done a lot of that. Revision. I am taking my second PhD course this semester. Last semester I took a course with Dr. Woody Schweitzer from counseling, very accomplished researcher in the area. And the course was adult and college student development, and it explained everything. It explained my son, he's 26 now, and his development. It explained everything that had happened to me in the last 32 years in dental hygiene. It explained my own development as an adult. So it was really a wonderful course. It explained everything. The course I'm taking this semester is University Organization and Structure, and that is a very helpful course for an assistant dean. So I am really learning everything I've needed to know for a long time. It's a great program. It's the higher education program right now, but it's fun to see their examples of interacting with students and seeing how they apply them to me as a student. So I'm able to observe from that aspect too. Interacting with students forms connections between the faculty and the student, which helps the student connect to the information. And so I think it's very critical. And I'll be interested to hear your examples. Do you see yourself teaching students or teaching subject matter? It's evident from all of you here today that ODU faculty are very concerned with the effectiveness of teaching and learning. I'd like to know if you, how many of you teach freshmen and sophomores? Raise your hand. So about half the group. And do you also, and how many teach juniors and seniors? Great. Another about half the group. Graduate students? Have many of you taught university athletes, student athletes? Yeah, and that's about a quarter of the group, and that's a fun population to teach. I had an opportunity to work 2 years with the female athlete of the year with a 4.0, and as she graduated and went on to dental hygiene, and that was a really unique experience. So a whole different population. How about face-to-face classes? Who teaches in face-to-face, and how many teach online? Great. It'll be interesting to hear what you do to interact with students in your online courses. And how about other distance modalities? Great.
Like
Teletechnet?
whatever
Yeah.
it used to be called.
Yes.
Now it's called Jabber.
Now it's called Jabber. You're using Jabber, Jackie?
Cisco Jabber. I'm using it this semester for the first time.
Excellent.
I love it. You like it better than the other.
Okay.
Great. Planning student interactions helps you improve the effectiveness of those interactions. And what I'm proposing today is use a little bit of that student development theory to understand the students that you're working with and how you might interact with them more effectively. Perry's theory was early on, and Perry's theory discussed the intellectual growth. And what we can use is recognizing the student's current stage or position, advancing them a little bit to the next level with a little bit of challenge, just a little bit. Too much you might just have everybody stop talking in your classroom. But if you use just a little bit of challenge, you can get them to the next intellectual level. So let's talk a little bit about that. And while you're, while we are offering that challenge, support is critical. Encouragement, support, and it has to be, of course, specific and direct to the level of that student. So in the first position, Perry's scheme, students are dichotomous, kind of black and white. They see things as factual. The instructor is the expert. They want you to give the information to them, and right answers exist for everything. Whereas when they begin to develop and approach the next level, then peers can become more legitimate sources of information. In the third position, which is each of these have terms, but when we progress to that third level, students are working with their good faculty, and these good faculty don't have all the answers, and it allows students to think that there is diverse views and to find value in honoring those diverse views. So you can provide support as they grow through these stages in your class, or from freshman to junior to senior and graduating and graduate level as well. Neffelkamp developed a instruction instructional design plan based on Perry, and mentioned structure. I recognized that student needed more structure in dental hygiene at the beginning level. When they enter that major and they're just learning it, they know nothing about that major, they're starting from the very beginning, they need a lot of structure in the framework of how you present the information, but also in all of your instructions and directions to the student. So at the early stages, whether they're a freshman in beginning or whether they're in their first major courses that you're teaching, that structure is very important. Diversity of alternatives and perspectives, so that they're, to get them from level to level, diversity of perspectives and information is very helpful. But you start small, you start gradually, and build on that. So if you provide too many diverse alternatives or diverse perspectives at an early stage, the student might be overwhelmed with that information. Experiential learning or involvement, and we do this very strenuously, very focused in the health sciences, because we know that that experiential learning is key to them becoming competent with the information as well as the skills. So I think that applies to Japanese, engineering, and many other aspects of your curriculum and majors. Personalization, of course, is that interactive environment with enthusiasm from you for the material and comprehensive feedback to the student. Dr. Chris Glass, my current faculty member, is exceptional with this personalization and feedback. Excellent. Identity development was proposed by Chickering, and Chickering and Reiser kind of improved on the original theory. Identity is something that students are grappling with during those 4 or more college years. It's key. Identity is both their purpose for their vocation, their purpose in life, in overall life, but also in their developing competence. And especially at those early stages, that development of competence is really important. And it takes time. Their self-esteem has not necessarily been established yet. So all these things go into your thinking as you're preparing interactions with them. Leanne, your History 101 example comes to mind. Leanne had a day, she came in and she's like, these students this year. And she was having trouble engaging them in discussion on ideas during their lecture. You must have worked that out.
I did I think I found a solution to the problem. I think the cause of the problem is a lack of engagement, and sometimes that depends on your discipline, especially when you teach freshmen and sophomores. If the information is not interesting to them and they don't care, it's sometimes, challenging to get them to get involved. So I think the whole, purpose is the part that you have to kind of get them to understand. And so by giving them first an opportunity to think about it before I put them on the spot, by allowing them to reflect, using a lot of the QEP stuff that we've gotten recently has been very helpful to me, especially with these freshmen. But then also by trying to find a way, instead of teaching the history back in whatever year it was, to put it into the context of, okay, we're in Norfolk on the campus of ODU, and by doing that, I was able to get the students to actually participate in the conversation and to find meaning in it.
I liked your idea about giving them a chance to think about it first before start asking questions. How did you do that?
I posed a question to them. I put an image up on the board and I asked them to answer that question based upon their analysis of that image, and then I gave them about 5 minutes to write it down themselves, to give them an opportunity to participate without having to speak in front of a bunch of people. And then I let them discuss it in small groups, and then we went around the room and they talked, and they actually talked, and it was good.
That's wonderful. Leanne White is the Director of Health Sciences Academic Advising. Thanks, Leanne. Were there any ideas similar or divergent from that at getting students engaged at the beginning when they're just sitting there looking at Jackie Sharp, Dr. Jackie Sharp, Health Sciences?
I think it's important to find out from them, is there relevance to the topic? Does it have importance? Notice I'm not telling them as the instructor that it does. I want to hear from them. Have they decided, is it relevant for me to sit here for 3 hours and listen to this topic? How do you incorporate it in your major? How do you incorporate it in things you do as a professional in your major?
What did you ask them about the relevance?
Okay, like for instance, last night for a class of 65 that we're using Jabber, where we have students in the classroom and students everywhere else, I said the topic for today is pertaining to healthcare marketing. Is there any relevance in health services administration and public health for healthcare marketing? And then they start talking. But they also have to look outside their book before they come to class. We don't rely on PowerPoint slides and all that anymore. What I want them to do is to examine the literature related to the topic and tell me, do they agree or disagree with what the author is saying? Now, this is undergraduate students. So they're really thinking smartly now, and I am really amazed at how they are being analytical, because we look more for those type of competencies and skills at the graduate level. But I think we haven't spent a lot of time preparing undergraduates for the graduate level. So I'm really more into that. So even if you don't go to graduate school, you have a job. You know, remember, you have a job. You know, most of us work while we are in professional schools. So those are skills not only for the graduate level, but for what you do every day in your job.
So your students are juniors and seniors?
Juniors and seniors.
So the relevance
they
is
could
good
be,
at
or they could
that
be
level.
just starting in the major. So I have a mixture when I look at my spread out sheet. So I have a mixture of grades in there. They're not all juniors and seniors.
Great. Those were good examples to engage the student and encourage that interaction. Are there any others?
I'm Dr. Larissa Bulasheva. I'm teaching IT classes. So I teach, for example, freshmen. So for freshmen, I teach freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and graduate as well. So for freshman classes, what I do, I ask them to do some research. Some research at the beginning, in addition to material and special topics which I will identify. And with this research, they're supposed to give me a summary. It will be just 1 page, for example, really just 1 page, very short page, but it's supposed to follow all requirements according to APA 6 style. So they're supposed to use citations, they're supposed to cite everything, and they're supposed to find 3 quality resources. And Wikipedia is not one of them. I believe you all of you know that. So, and at the end, of course, they need to submit this summary through Blackboard in assignment area. And I still ask them to prepare short presentation. So they could submit also with a summary and additional PowerPoint slides. It will be just couple slides, but they have to explain. They have to show understanding of what they learn about these topics. And then they present it in the class, but of course in a very short form because time is very limited.
Thank you, that's good. So a short reading, submit a brief summary and opinion in Blackboard, and then come to class prepared to make a short presentation about that opinion. when you are asking the student to provide the evidence for their opinion, just know that that comes at a pretty advanced stage in their development. At the first stage, they're looking to you for the right answers. At the next stage, they're able to provide an opinion, but not necessarily the evidence for their opinion. Janice, were you going to have a...
This is good timing. I'm a plant for Debbie. She asked me to be here to say this at this time.
Thank you to all my plants.
Because I was just going to support what she just said. And I think this is real obvious, but I'll just give you an example of something that worked very well for us. This is with junior level, senior level RN to BSN students. And we have a few discussion board assignments that are supposed to supplement the other assignments that are in the course. And we really found that time and time again, they would post a nice initial discussion, and then they were required to respond back to others in the group. And then, of course, they would respond back with, I agree with what you said. And that's really good. Then you're thinking, well, do we say, okay, you have to respond with a paragraph? But what we did is we revised the course at the end of that semester, and we required that their responses, they couldn't be wrong, but you had to support them with evidence. So a year later, when we took the course and we're reading their discussion, we're like, wow, this group is amazing. They're so great. We forgot that we did that change, but it really increased their level of interacting with each other and took their conversations up a notch on the things they were saying. So.
I think, keep the microphone, Janice. Janice, another amazing advisor in health sciences, advisor of the year at ODU. Yay. I had a question about your discussion board, because a lot of times it's difficult for me in my online course to get students to talk to each other more than, oh yes, I agree with that. Do you do anything with timed expectations for their entry, like their first entry for the discussion board would be by this date, and then further date for interacting with at least so many students in the group?
We do. I guess our requirements are pretty defined. But that's just what we're used to doing in nursing, I think, too, though we're here's how many microdrips you do. So that's just our nature. But yes, we have a due date for the initial discussion board, and usually that has some prompts that they have to respond to, and that initial discussion board is a little bit bigger on what they have to respond to. And then we'll give them a number, depending on the course, that they have to respond to 2 or 3 students, and that deadline is usually a week later. So I will tell you, I'm also in online classes, and our discussion board requirements are killing us. So we don't do that. Our requirements are that we have an initial post every single week by Monday, and then we have to respond to 3 different classmates on 3 different days with examples, which requires you to be in the online class at least 4 days a week. Don't do that. We're just
Too
all...
much. That's
We're
too
just
much.
all, this is killing us. But we have a number that they're required, and we do have 2 different due dates. And when you put that requirement, they have to support their answers, it has just changed the level a lot.
Are you using the rubric for discussion boards to communicate to your students your expectations for their interaction?
We have a rubric, so that took it up a notch too, that the rubric is pretty well defined.
CLT provides a rubric, yeah, for discussion boards. Yay. Yay. Was there anybody else on that one? So I mentioned let me go back a little bit. This one might, some of these ideas might help with that engaging student discussion in class, interacting with each other, and interacting when they're not quite ready yet to expose themselves or expose their ideas for other people to criticize or critique. And one would be reporting the opinions of others. If you ask them to write down their opinion, provide some evidence if you're trying to take them to the next level, and then ask them to share it with a classmate where they describe their opinion and explain it a little further. And then during the open class discussion, the classmates then are not reporting their own opinion, they're reporting somebody else's, and that might be a little bit more comfortable. What do you do for encouraging participation? Do you encourage, how do you encourage, or do you require? And there's a slight difference there, but I think the students would feel it very, very strongly. How about reading two dissenting interpretations of an opinion? Two is manageable at a freshman level, let's say. If you were to provide four, there might be some difficulty handling that information like you would with a graduate course or a senior level course. Any comments on that? Providing detailed instructions on an assignment is also very important. A lot of structure for that freshman level. Yes?
I have a question about the readings. Two dissenting interpretation is decent and said small enough. How about three? Do you think that's too many?
If I were teaching at, and I have, if I was teaching entering students in a major or in Japanese, you're teaching a Japanese class, we talked earlier.
But my question was more about the course on literature or film.
The
Usually
literature.
when we assign one literary text, students come up with a different idea. And also when I assign the primary text, I also assign the secondary text written by distinguished authors. And oftentimes, the error I make is introduce too many paradigms or too many interpretations models. And when you said two dissenting interpretations is good, my gut reaction was, three too many or maybe four too many? For me, I think 3 or 4 seems ideal.
I think it would be ideal at a higher level student, or maybe later on in that course. Early on, it might just be too much. But if you dissected those readings into a short paragraph or a shorter segment related to one specific element of that argument, you might be able to get more control when you're having your discussion in class, or when you are expecting them to comment on it on a test and apply that knowledge. If you're teaching graduate students, yes, pile on those readings, definitely. Please.
I think one of the benefits of introducing too many is to bring in the historical perspective. So especially in the area of area studies, studies about Asia or Japan, for example, the paradigm shifts happen quite often. And every time that happens, the people start to speak with different language, with different categories. What I really want to teach to my audio students is that historicity of our thinking. So one danger of introducing two, at least in the fields of humanity, is to dichotomize everything. And oftentimes, when we split things into two, if we can create some dialectical development from there, I think that is fine. But I think really what's really important is bringing the historicity of the category, the sense that scholarship is always evolving, it's always changing. And I think two might be too small from that perspective. Yes.
Yes.
Can I address that for just a second?
Please do.
Debbie said something about the timing within the course. And I tend to teach juniors, but I find that many times at the beginning of the semester, they really want the black and white. And then after they're comfortable and they realize that there is a possibility of 2 and sometimes 3, they can begin to and I don't know, I'm going to sound very middle-aged, but I don't know whether it's this generation and they just want the right answer, but getting them to that critical thinking part where they can actually take 2 or 3 things and pull them together and synthesize their belief that may not agree with any of the 3 is kind of an intriguing concept for me.
Yes. At one point, I used 2 textbooks, and one textbook was very outline, bulleted, succinct, structured, and the other provided much of the theory, the historical development of that theory. And these were dental hygiene books, both very valuable to the development of a student dental hygienist. But the students would say to me, and we had procedure manual as well. So the students would say to me, there's conflicting information here. And for example, when they're taking blood pressure, and there's ranges of blood pressure that are normal and ranges that become above normal but still okay. These were things that we really had to discuss in class to provide some of that rationale why we're seeing different information in 2 authoritative textbooks, and to discuss that. And then we would also take it and say, but practically learning here in your clinic with your first patients, this is what our expectations are. And then when you're a practicing professional, you can take that information and apply it and be more critically thinking and applying outside information like the medications the patient was taking is somehow impacting. So applying other variables to that same aspect. So yes, I have found at a certain level, at a beginning level, the students need me to tell them what's right. They need structure, they need factual information, and then we grow into that level. And it depends on your level of students too.
I think to go along with that, when you give someone too much information and they're at the identify level, they first have to learn how to identify what's important, then they can interpret that, and then they can analyze it. And if we try to jump to that analysis with multiple things before they get the foundation, that's where they just kind of give up on understanding. And I liked what you said about pulling out a paragraph. I might give a reading that's 2 pages long, but there's really 1 or 2 paragraphs that are important. I might as well just give them those 2 paragraphs to read so that they can focus on what's important and then analyze it.
Yes. I like that. That interaction in class is a nice activity. What other ideas do we have? Yes.
I teach accounting, so they're very different.
Yes, accounting and dental hygiene are very different.
So, but for encourage participations, I use the quizzes at the end of the class time, and I do the group quiz, and that seems to work very well, because the students, my class, I have a heavy volume in the exam, in a total grade. But the participation can bring the score up. And because I do the quiz, part of the participation, and every class I do the quiz. And the group quiz, they talk each other, and they can discuss. So that seems to encourage them to participate in the class. But my problem is it doesn't translate into the test score. That is a part I'm a little bit puzzling. They seem to discuss and find interest in that subject when I give them a quiz. But when I test it, some of people doesn't seem to really understand.
So the group discussion of the quiz at the end of class and their participation in that does not translate to their their knowledge level that you're expecting on the test
Yes.
for that item.
Yes.
That's very interesting. After your group discussion on the quiz, do you how do you provide the correct answer to the quiz,
Okay.
or the correct rationale for that answer?
Okay, so what I usually do, so I look at all of the students' quiz answer, and I pick the best solution among the students' one, and I post that solution, and I tell them, this is what my expectation if I give you this type of the question in the exam. This is what I expect.
Maybe they're not reading that in the post.
But I can't control that part.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm posting. So every time when I do the quiz, so I basically use student solution and post it and tell them, this is what I expect.
I think that's good. How might you use that example in your class, or even build upon what she's doing in her class, in her accounting class?
I have 2 questions. Are they getting the outcome when you're posting, or are they getting the steps that it took for the group to come up with the correct answer? Because sometimes the steps in how to find the solution or problem solving is as important as the actual outcomes. But I don't know what you're posting, so.
Yeah, but usually those ones, accounting, if they answer, they have to, show me how you get the solution, because it's like a mathematics, right? Like you have to solve X, so you have to show everything. So in that solution, every step should be in there, if that's what you are asking.
I'm just wondering why they don't get the steps. Is it?
Just 1 second, please.
Sorry.
Thank
This
you.
is for the future. The steps are as important to getting the answer. And if it's mathematical or calculations, are they able themselves to figure out the steps to get the solution from what you're posting? In other words, the answers are there, but are they getting the ideas of how those steps came about? I don't teach math or calculations. I do medications, so I do some mathematical things that way. But those are different because those are concentrations. So I'm thinking of the steps, but maybe I'm just narrowly thinking.
Yes, its step is in there. But sometimes I do not understand. Maybe some of the students really don't understand math, although some other students understand the step, but the step itself, sometimes I don't know.
Well, what I do is you can strip their names off and post the ones that were wrong. And they will notice, what I will do is at the end of a quiz, I will say this is the correct solution, or this was a great approach, and I'll show them that, but I'll also show them, and I won't mention any names, but I'll say, you know who you are, and then I'll point at them in class or whatever. But I will say, look at this, what'd you forget? And then they learn that way. Then they learn where the important steps are and say, well, gosh, you got the same answer or close to it, but not the right answer, and then this is how you do it. So sometimes they can learn from the ones who make mistakes as much as the perfect solution, because they know who that kid is. Ugh, nerd. And they're looking at him, so.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think that's, when I post a solution, I take off the name, but it's a good idea to post the, wrong answer one and to tell them, yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
So Scott's idea is a great one. Say this one's right and that one's wrong, but Scott has a way of delivering that in a very friendly, non non-embarrassing way or totally embarrassing, so everybody is equally embarrassed.
Exactly. I do that in my med-term class as well.
Yeah. Oh, start again. You
I do that
more?
in my med-term class as well. 124 students in a medical school kind of, and I also teach at the medical school. But I'll say, okay, what does this word mean? It's a medical language class, and it's memorizing stuff, but they have to go a little bit deeper. And if they get it wrong, I'll say, okay, was she right or wrong? And then they'll say, I agree, she was right. And then I'll say, okay, you're the lawyer. And I'll say, now we're having a lawsuit. Was that correct? And all of a sudden, it personalizes it, makes it real. It embarrasses everybody. But if I do it enough, then they're used to it, and it takes away some of the stigma. So, yeah, thanks.
You're the accountant and you're going to be audited. Is that right? Is that right?
Well, I couldn't help but get involved in this one from a parent's perspective. Because when you're talking about math, and I do have a son that just recently got his degree in applied accounting. And you know how sometimes along the way they ask for your help when they're trying to learn how to solve a problem. I have learned the first thing you have to say is clear your brain. What did your teacher tell you to do? Because different instructors in math are not given different ways to arrive in an answer. So that's important. In your case, I feel, is that they have to understand. They have to understand what you're telling them to do and not do. They can't be relying on the past. It's the present now. You're the teacher. They have to listen and respect that. Because if they don't, they're going to get that negative end result that you're talking about. They're not going to come out with the right answer.
Thank you, Jackie. Oh, good.
Hi, just maybe some comments for the question right there. I think that's kind of related to a pretty different field. Like I'm talking about STEM field, talking about science and physics. I taught physics before. I had a similar situation. When you look at homework, they get perfect score, but of course they have a lot of source to use, like website. So you don't know whether they really understand the question or not. When you have an exam, wow, they totally bomb the exam. So how I feel is, two things I learned from this. First, you need to teach them how to prepare for the exam. How to prepare, you need to teach them. For example, you need to have, I heard some people tell me, you need to tell them you have 2 piles of homeworks. The first pile, I know how to do that. The second pile, I need some help. So you need to teach them how to prepare for the exam. And the second I learned is, really, for that thing, we teach the concept the first time, you need to talk about a misconception. So you correct them at a very early age. And also, something I'm thinking about in the future is, before the exam, I want to give them like a bonus, like assignment. So maybe choose all the problems I think are important. Ask them to redo do the problem again. To give them some exercise before they take the real exam. So, and the thing that for the black and white, this is my comment again. I think with the learning curve, because I have a 6-year-old. Probably remember the little kids always ask you, when they watch a movie, is it a good guy or bad guy? So I think it's a natural thing, at this stage, when you tell the students what is right, what is wrong, and I think it's not this generation play. It's a learning curve.
I like that idea about encouraging the students to prepare for the exam, and you have 2 piles of homework, one that you know and you're comfortable with, and one that you need help with. It sets them up to come into class with questions or go to the tutoring center. That's a very good idea. That self-assessment skill is critical too, and the recent literature shows that this recent group of new college students is lacking in accurate self-assessment skills. So I think we need to teach that too, and how to know. And so more of those self-assessment activities in the back of the book or in class with each other can be very valuable in teaching self-assessment skills. But I love that idea, the pile I need to work on. It's a good idea.
There is something called SI section. Are you familiar with?
No.
It's like students prepare the course to teach other students. If you are not familiar with.
Is it a software?
No, it's that all the Dominion provide like something called the SI section. But if you, and I heard, last semester in a business school has a SI section, and the economics and accounting, I think, had SI section. And I heard with the psychology, some other discipline had SI section for a long time.
This is with the course. There's another course?
That's some sort of study session
Okay,
with the
yes,
students
yes.
selected and do like a tutoring.
Yes.
My question was, when I was talking to the organized people, somehow they said, business class, no students show up. In the psychology, it's usually like 30 students are in that session. And I wanted to know how you encourage students to go.
Is anybody teaching math, the early level math courses?
I'm a young faculty, so I teach one course here at ODU, and also I had experience teaching physics at Christopher Lipponius University at the physics course. I have 25 students, but unfortunately we don't have any help. We don't have a teaching assistant. So what I do is I have 2 hours office hour on Friday. So I just tell students to come to my office hour, especially, from the first midterm exam, I identify several people I think need help. So I tell them to come to my office hour. I need to go homework every time. So, yeah. So I think that help depends. If I tell several students to come. Actually, only 2 come to my office hour. Go with homework every time. I found that actually those 2 students improve a lot, but some students they will not come, no matter what. And for encourage students to come, we use a sign. We have a sign sheet, but I don't think that really help. I heard some people use put that in syllabus. Attendance I put 2 points in attendance. That means if you come, I'll keep the rate. If you come here 100%, I give 5 points. I think that really will help because it doesn't help because no matter say I'm going to do what look at points, look at the final score. I think that probably will help to encourage them to come.
Yes. Sometimes you need to encourage them with extra credit. I used to give the juniors extra credit points up to 3 points on their final grade. So it could get them out of trouble, but they got themselves out of trouble because they'd go to a test anxiety class and get help over here in the Commons. And they would get help on their test anxiety, so not only did they get those extra credit points, but their grades did improve. And the Commons has quite a few of those cutely named courses, and you can offer a little incentive to them because they don't always attend. So I think a little what is that? Immediate gratification, or something actually useful to them, they're going to pick up before they realize that the content of that tutoring or extra help or time in your office is going to actually benefit them. Great, let me move on from here. So we talked about the competency issues as they develop their identity. And so I like to do a lot of encouragement of their competency. And back to that question about I don't want to insult them, that they're doing it wrong, or defeat them at all. So what I tend to do is point out the student that knew it, like it's kind of Scott's idea, maybe not putting the right answer on the board and these are the wrong answers, but saying that's correct so that they know what to do. And I'm talking about a dental hygienist sitting in a chair in a seat position that's going to help them be a dental hygienist as long as I have, and not, lose their professional skills early on. So, online interactions, I asked about the discussion board. CLT also recommends that if you're teaching an online course, engage the students daily. 3 times a day, check your email. You might not have some email, but students in online need that pretty immediate response from you. They need to know that you're available. The warm, supportive environment for our students goes throughout the full curriculum. And with an online course, 5 years ago, I added Adobe Acrobat Connect for that, the time to talk, the time to ask questions, the time to connect with me as the instructor, time for me to know them better. We can review some of the content. It's really fun. And this is one of our sessions. I had 8 graduate students this semester that I was teaching. And these are my students at home on their bed in front of their refrigerator. I had one who was local, so we sat and talked here on the left-hand side of the screen. And so they would send me chats, little text messages that I could respond, or they were clarifying something, or could you cover that again, or this is my question, let's go back to the content. It's really easy to use, it's really fun. And Allison, what's the new modality? Jabber? You're using Jabber in this one? WebEx and Jabber. So there's lots of modalities you can use, and I'm sure faculty would be happy to explain. And CLT provides wonderful workshops. I attended the Adobe Acrobat Connect workshop 2 or 3 times, and as I was learning that. So it's been wonderful, especially in a course where that interaction is key, and it's key to learning or it's key to content. So I think it's really wonderful. I use it every semester. When I was department chair, seniors were kind of going through some hard times as they were entering out on towards just tension about graduating, becoming all this person they were trying to become. And so I'd take a group of 5 of them, because we could fit at a 6-top table, to Herradura, La Herradura down here, and they would order from the $5 menu, and it was just a wonderful time. And then I learned that I was developing purpose for these students. It was wonderful. They were feeling good. They weren't as stressed going out, taking their boards. It was just a really good time to make those connections. And kind of like that, we were also able to benefit as a school by knowing their job placement, and by kind of pre-finding out, pre-learning some of their concerns as they were taking that exit exam, exit assessment. Are there any other interactions you have used that might have developed competence or identity or continue their development? Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, in my CHP 450 class that deals with public and community health administration, it deals with a lot of management skills. And one thing that I do with the students is I have them to connect with someone in the real world. They have to go out and do a structured interview and find out more details than they ever thought in their life about how does that person manage. And I've been doing it now for years, and I really didn't know what would what's going to be the outcome of this as far as a learning exercise for them, I always get 100% positive reviews on it. They'll say, I never, because they gotta look like a professional first. They're going to conduct a structured interview, and they have already set questions to ask, and then they can ask any other questions that they would like to. And they find out from these professionals who are already in the field what their job really entails on a day-to-day basis, not just what's in the book, but in the real world of things that they do. And they seem to enjoy that very much.
I think they do too. I'm supposed to do that in my course coming up. So, and the idea that you give a structured outline of questions that have been vetted by professionals, the faculty, that sets up a very good experience. And I hope you have picked up some ideas for interacting with students and maybe sharpened some of your skills in applying those interactions to more towards the student's developmental level. I know you'll be fabulous, and because you already are, and go Monarchs!